The orbital bombardment had turned the refugee camp into a graveyard of ash and twisted metal. Commander Vexthor of the Galactic Coalition stepped carefully through the rubble, his thermal scanner painting the scene in shades of death. Nothing should have survived the Krell assault. Yet his scanner was lighting up with life signs, dozens of them, clustered in what remained of the medical sector. What he found there would be reported, debated, and eventually entered into the Coalition's archives as Case File 2847H, the Impossible Defense. At the center of a scorched crater stood a human woman. She couldn't have been more than 30 cycles old, her dark hair matted with blood and dust, her clothes torn and burned. But that wasn't what made Vexthor freeze. It was the creatures surrounding her, 23 Vorith cubs, each no larger than a human child, their crystalline fur reflecting the dying light of the settlement's fires. They formed a perfect circle around her, their backs to her position, their small bodies tense and ready despite their obvious injuries. "Stand down," Vexthor said in Standard Galactic. "We're Coalition forces. The Krell have retreated." The woman, Celine, according to the camp's damaged records, didn't move. Her right arm hung at an unnatural angle, and burns covered her left side. She swayed on her feet, but remained standing. The cubs didn't so much as twitch. One of the cubs, slightly larger than the others with distinctive silver markings along its spine, turned its head, its multifaceted eyes fixed on Vexthor with an intelligence that belied its young age. "You will not take her," the cub said, its voice carrying the harmonic resonance unique to Vorith young. Vexthor had served in the Coalition military for 40 standard years, but he'd never heard a Vorith cub speak with such absolute conviction. "We're not here to take anyone," Vexthor said carefully. "We're here to help." "Jero," the woman's voice cut through the air, hoarse and barely above a whisper. "It's all right." The silver-marked cub, Jero, didn't move. "You can barely stand, Celine. They're Coalition forces. Lower the defensive pattern." "That's an order." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the circle of cubs relaxed their stance. Jero moved to Celine's side, positioning himself to support her weight if she fell. Vexthor's medical team rushed forward, but they stopped short when the cubs immediately reformed their protective barrier. It took Celine's explicit permission before they allowed the medics close enough to begin treatment. As the medical team worked, Vexthor studied the scene with a tactical officer's eye. The crater they stood in wasn't natural. It was a blast pattern consistent with a close-range antimatter detonation. At the center, a melted lump of metal had once been a Krell assault mech. Around the perimeter, he counted 17 more destroyed Krell units. "Impossible," his weapons specialist muttered. "Commander, these were military-grade mechs." "Not impossible," Jero interrupted. "Celine did it." Vexthor turned to the young Vorith. "A human civilian destroyed 18 Krell combat units while protecting 23 cubs? You don't understand." Jero's crystalline fur rippled with bioluminescence. "When the Krell came, the other humans ran. The Vorith adults were fighting at the northern perimeter. We were alone in the medical sector. Just cubs. Defenseless." Another cub joined Jero. Celine stayed. She didn't run. "The camp protocol said all non-essential personnel should evacuate," a third cub added. Celine was non-essential. A veterinary technician. She could have run. Jero's eyes never left Celine as the medics stabilized her. Instead, she gathered us. All of us. The injured, the sick, the ones too young to walk. She brought us to the medical bunker and sealed the door. Vexthor accessed the camp's damaged security network. Fragments of footage remained, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The medical sector had been hit in the first wave. The primary bunker had collapsed immediately. "She dug us out," Jero continued, with her bare hands. "The door was jammed, and the oxygen was running out. She tore through twisted metal until her fingers bled. Then she got us out, one by one. That's when the Krell ground forces arrived," another cub whispered. "They saw us, saw that we were cubs. They didn't care." Vexthor felt sick. The Krell had signed the Juvenile Protection Accords. Targeting children was a war crime. "Celine put herself between us and them," Jero said quietly. "She had no weapons, no armor, just herself." The footage Vexthor found next would haunt him for years. Celine, already injured from the bunker collapse, facing down a Krell assault squad with nothing but a medical laser cutter and a piece of torn bulkhead as a shield. She killed the first 3 before they realized she was dangerous, Jero said. Then they called in the mechs. Vexthor watched as Selene somehow outmaneuvered the killing machines. She'd used the rubble, the smoke, the chaos. She'd turned their weapons against them, triggered their own explosives. And through it all, she'd kept herself between the Krell and the Cubs. When the antimatter mech cornered us, Jero's voice wavered. She grabbed its core ejection handle and pulled. Then she threw herself over us when it detonated. The silence that followed was broken only by the hiss of medical equipment. Finally, one of Vexthor's soldiers asked, why? Why would she risk everything for cubs that weren't even her species? Selene's eyes opened. The medics had given her something for the pain, and her voice was stronger now. 3 months ago, I found a Vorith cub caught in a plasma fire at the power station. Its name was Kira. Its parents were both serving on the front lines. I pulled Kira out, treated its burns, sat with it every night until it healed. Jero made a soft sound, the Vorith equivalent of a sob. Kira was my sister, he said. She died in the first orbital strike. But before she died, she made us promise something. She said, if anything happens, find Selene. She never abandoned me. She won't abandon you. Selene reached out with her good hand and gently touched Jero's crystalline fur. You don't abandon family. Not when they're scared. Not when they're in danger. Not ever. The cubs wouldn't leave Selene's side during her evacuation. They rode with her to the medical ship, stayed in her recovery room, and refused to be separated even when their own parents arrived. When the Vorith High Council heard the full story, they did something unprecedented. They adopted Selene as kin mother, a title reserved for those who'd proven themselves worthy of caring for Vorith young. It was the highest honor their culture could bestow, but when asked about it later, after her recovery, Selene simply shrugged. They needed someone. I was there. That's all. Jero, standing beside her, added his own perspective. That's not all. Selene never said she'd protect us. She never promised she'd stay. She just did. When everyone else ran, when survival meant abandoning us, she chose differently. That's not just bravery. That's love. Commander Vexthor included all of this in his official report. He added a personal note at the end, one that was later circulated through the Coalition's command structure. If humanity can produce individuals like Selene, individuals who will face death itself rather than abandon those in their care, then perhaps we've been asking the wrong question about them. We've spent decades wondering what makes humanity dangerous. After witnessing what I saw today, I finally understand. It's not that humans are fearless. It's that they fear the right things. They fear not being there when someone needs them. They fear abandoning those who trust them. And when faced with those fears, they make the choice that most species would consider illogical. They choose the other. In the recovery ward of the Coalition medical ship, Selene slept surrounded by Vorith cubs who refused to leave her side. Jero kept watch by her bed, his crystalline fur glowing softly in the dim light. When a nurse asked him why they wouldn't leave, why they felt such loyalty to this one human, Jero's answer was simple. Because she never abandoned us when it mattered most. How could we do any less for her? And in that answer, in that unwavering devotion born from one human's impossible choice, the galaxy learned something new about humanity. They learned that sometimes, the most dangerous weapon in the universe isn't a gun or a bomb or a warship. Sometimes, it's someone who refuses to run when everyone else does. Someone who looks at the scared and the vulnerable and says, I'm here, and I'm not leaving. That was what made humanity truly terrifying to their enemies and invaluable to their friends. Not their capacity for violence, but their capacity for love.